Go.
No. All right, we're on. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Say It Loud, the show where each week my guest and I talk about a random different piece of music history. I've got a special guest in the house tonight, Rob Smith, to talk to us about the Philly sound. So, Rob, why don't you tell us what we're going to talk about this evening?
You know, let me first say I'm not an expert in Philly soul, but I'm one of those folks who grew up listening to so much of the music, and then I sort of stumbled on the reality that the Philly sound didn't necessarily receive the same type of heralding as some other sounds. And, you know, it's just been over the last, few decades where I've really come to appreciate the artists, the composers, the writers, the powerful, soulful sound that comes out of Philly, particularly in the 70s. That's not to take anything away from other periods in which the Philadelphia provides us. Philadelphia specifically provides R&B, popular music more broadly, all these wonderful gems and all these wonderful gifts. Of course, you know, the centrality of Philly in reference to the African-American experience can't be overstated. Philly is important for all kinds of reasons. Of course, Du Bois in his classic, The Philadelphia Negro, is the first examination of the urban black population there in the 20th century, and even that early, Philly significant. But what we're talking about here is a particular sound that is distinctive to this particular community of artists, composers, and arrangers: Kenny Gamble, Leon Huff, Gene McFadden, John Whitehead. McFadden and Whitehead with the classic Ain't No Stopping Us Now, Tom Bell. Some of these names should be household names, but they're not. And so what I'd like to do today with you, JT, is just spend a little bit of time going back into a moment where this particular sound really carries R&B. When we were in the 1970s, these artists are part of an important community at an important moment of folks who are bridging that 50s and 60s sound that we associate with Motown and doo-wop and everything else. They're bridging those sounds and moving us into the serious funk and R&B that come to define the late 70s and 80s. And so Philly is the Philly soul sound. The Philly sound is important. I think the first song, of course, that makes us think about this particular period and moment is the soundtrack of Soul Train, TSOP, The Sound of Philadelphia. I can't imagine a better song to start the night off with. And Mr. DJ, with your okay, we can get this thing started with that.
Let's hit it. Fade in there. All right. So there's our first taste, a song that's probably familiar to a few of us, but I'm going to agree with Rob, and even myself, a person I'd consider myself pretty into music. I was very surprised doing research on this, actually, thinking about how big Philly is without me even knowing it. So why don't we, since we've got this track and we've got a little sample, why don't you tell me, Rob, about the sound? Why is this different than something like Motown or different than something like Stax? What's the Philly sound? What's it made up?
That's a really good question. The Philly sound, of course, I think is more appropriately considered a subgenre. I mean, we're not necessarily blazing new trails in terms of the sound, but what we are seeing, of course, and hearing is heavy, thick bass lines, lush strings. You're going to hear powerful yet sultry voices that caress the music in very strong yet seductive ways. You're going to hear impressive horn sections. You're seeing this wonderful melding of various components of the R&B sound emerging in the 70s in very strong ways. And each of these components to the polyrhythm itself becomes much more powerful in the Philly sound. And I think that this song in particular, the theme of Soul Train, TSOP, the sound of Philly, is so emblematic of that. And let me just give us a little bit more of this, and then we can try another track.
You got it. All right. So we get a little bit of taste of that sound. I think Rob's got another song queued up for us.
Well, you know, the truth of the matter is I just wanted to come here for an hour and listen to some good soul music with you. And what better place to listen to soul music than the sound that comes out of Philly? When we start this conversation, we begin really in the mid 60s or so with some of the artists that are a part of that moment that then carry the Philly sound into the 1970s. One of the groups that do that, a couple of groups that do that, of course, are the Intruders and the Stylistics. And those names sound like throwback names. They sound like names from almost an earlier 1940s, 1950s moment. But when I play some of these songs, and we'll just do some snippets here, JT, if that's okay. When I play some of these songs, you keep in mind that this is late 60s, early 70s. It's not that long ago. It's not a sound that is far from the funk and whatnot that we hear by the 1980s. But I think given this particular week, we're coming off of a Mother's Day. This song here by the Intruders is what they might call apropos.
All right, I'll take that.
I used to do, how mama used to clean somebody else's house just to buy me a new pair of shoes. I never understood how mama made it through the week when she never ever got a good night's sleep. Oh, she's one of a kind. You've got yours and I've got mine. So special, it's something that you can't describe. It's the kind of love that stays with you until the day you die. She taught me little things like saying hello and thank you please while scrubbing those floors on a bending knees. Oh, she's one of a kind. You've got yours and I've got mine.
Sorry, Ma, I gotta fade it out.
You got it. You got it.
You know, that's such a classic track in so many ways. But there's one more that I think folks might be a little surprised as a part of this Philly engine as well. And let's just go to something from the Stylistics now. Betcha by golly wow. You all know this one. If you don't know it, you've heard it.
In your eye, Candyland appears each time you smile. Never thought that fairy tales came true, but they come true when I'm near you. You're a genie in disguise. A falling star to shine on you, so I'll know where you are. All the rainbows in your favorite shades to show I love you. Thinking of you, write your name across the sky.
So one thing that strikes me right away is this is like a throwback kind of sound. We're talking early 70s here, but I'm hearing early 60s.
It's a very interesting mix because on the one hand, you have some of these groups like the Intruders and the Stylistics that give you that throwback sound with the falsetto and lead singer and all that. But at the very same time, you're starting to embark upon the powerful, soulful voices of your Eddie Leverts, Teddy Pendergrass. First he's with Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, and then he goes on to his solo career. And this is all in a short period of time. And these sounds are coming, they're emerging at the same time. While one sounds like a throwback, the other sound is certainly moving R&B into another moment. And can I play another one, or do you?
Yeah, no.
Okay,
let's put on another one.
I think an interesting sort of juxtaposition, of course, is with the sound we just heard. Is if we go to the Ojays and hear the powerful voice of Eddie Levert, and many of you probably know Love Train. You know that people all over join him. Well, let's do something that I think is is very emblematic of the Philly sound in this particular song here from the Ojays, I Love Music. Yes, Eddie Levert and the Ojays there, JT. Just a powerful, powerful voice. And the one thing that's beautiful about what we're hearing here is this unwillingness to relinquish the belief in love and hope. It's still in that blues tradition in so many ways, right? But of course, it's funneled through some different experiences by the 1970s. It's funneled through some technological advances in music that drives the sound and changes the sound somewhat. And so, you hear it here with the Ojays. In a lot of ways, when we talk Philly sound of the 1970s, the Ojays is one of those groups that comes to mind first. And there's some others that we're going to get to. But let's talk about that blaxploitation question.
No, yeah. So this is a couple of weeks ago. I know I've got some regular listeners out there. So a couple of weeks ago, we were talking blaxploitation. Same time period. We're talking early to mid 70s. Same time. But I mean, right there, and you just said it. Not giving up on love, and I love music. Well, and I'm trying to make this whole argument that you get these theme songs that they're creating this kind of ghetto narrative. Right. So it's it's supposed to be music from the street. So what's the street? And it's describing it, and you get these very unsavory characters. It's the music sounds lighthearted and happy and fun. And yet the environment that they're talking about sounds dangerous, and I shouldn't go there because it's pimps and drug dealers. So how do you think that and that's Stax and Motown. And really, when you think of that kind of sound, it's like Motown naturally, there's so many number one hits. Stax, maybe. But really, Philadelphia, I'm agreeing with you more and more that I'm thinking about this, that Philly doesn't come to mind.
We're talking about hundreds of number one hits in one decade. Not only number one, but hundreds of hits in one decade. Almost, we're talking near 200. The writers, the artists, the musicians are doing some remarkable stuff. And it's interesting that you mentioned blaxploitation, because that naturally is going to drive us into thinking about folks like Isaac Hayes, Curtis Mayfield, right? And so those folks are producing similar kinds of sounds. I mean, it's still heavy drums, heavy, thick bass line, soulful, sultry voices. Of course, there are some differences and some distinctions that set those individual artists apart and all that. But the Philly sound is sort of quintessential in that moment, and it's captured here, of course, with these artists. But it's certainly captured in the blaxploitation soundtracks that help to sort of anchor an era and anchor a sound of an era. But I do have to. I think it would be remiss of me if I didn't play one for the ladies. Can I play one for the ladies? Eddie Levert and his sons. Both his sons passed away very young. Of course, most folks probably know Gerald Levert, but Eddie Levert does something on this particular song here that I don't know many voices haven't been able to duplicate. The only person who is comparable in terms of this kind of strength and power on a microphone as a singer is, of course, Teddy Pendergrass. But ladies, we're going to get to Teddy. Be patient. But let me give you a little bit more Ojays and Eddie Levert here.
Treat you ever so gentle. I make every little thing alright. Honey, you never forget this night. Just let me make love to you, baby. I'll be good. I'll be better than better, neater than neater, sweeter than sweeter. I promise I'll do anything you want me to. Everything a man in love would do.
such a simple question. Such a simple question. I got to figure out how to be able to ask it like Eddie asked it.
Yeah. Well, so now we've got a song for the ladies. What about the ladies, though? Each week it seems like I find myself asking the same kind of question. So, how are women treated in the industry here as opposed to elsewhere? What's the role? And I think, I had, one of these was about women playing instruments and how that sort of seems to be unnatural, but everybody, you name your top 10 vocalists, there's going to be 2 women in there for everybody. So what is the role of women in the Philadelphia sound?
Well, there are a number of women who, of course, are significant to the background vocals, but there are several women who sort of rise to the top, the first of which is Patti LaBelle. I think that most folks know of Patti LaBelle. You probably know Lady Marmalade. If not that version, you certainly know Christina Aguilera and those other folks doing their version here more recently. But there's also another important voice out of Philly, Phyllis Hyman, who helps to carry the Philly soul sound into the 1980s, and she dies young. And here more recently, the sort of important woman out of Philly, I would say, and I'm a little biased, but Jill Scott. And so Jill Scott is in that same tradition. But let's give Patti some due, and let's listen to a little Patti LaBelle here, because you're right. If we're going to talk about the Philly sound, there's some women that we have to talk about, and we begin that conversation with Patti LaBelle, certainly.
Seem to come out right. Only you knew how much I do love you. Only you knew how much I do. But you're not there. I'm living in a fantasy. 'Cause you don't even suspect. Could probably care less about the changes I've been going through. Only you knew how much I do love you. Oh, yeah. Only you knew how much
She'll go on all night if you let her. Patty might do an encore for us. We give her the right applause.
If we treat her right, she
That's
might.
right. Thank you, Patty.
You know, that's like the first thing that strikes me is bring down all the levels in back, move the vocal to the center, crank it up.
Right. Let the vocalist shine. That's certainly a good composer and arranger is going to do that anyway, right? But that, you see that a lot with some of these artists from this particular moment because the voices are so powerful. The voices are so sultry. But let's go back to that 1970s moment a little bit more. You know, you brought up the blaxploitation movies, JT, and of course the question of what's going on in urban America, what's happening in the ghetto. You know, what they say, the funky ghetto. Mike Staples, I see you texting me, brother. I appreciate it. You too, Lamar. All right. You know, the same kinds of concerns are being addressed by the folks here with the Philly Soul sound. You know, so much of this, and you know this, you do this kind of research, JT, so much of what folks are offering in what we would consider R&B or black popular music in general has all these different threads of resistance sort of layered and filtered throughout. And that resistance doesn't necessarily have to be addressing the man, which is what we get out of the blaxploitation genre, which is critical and important for all kinds of reasons in that immediate sort of post-movement era. But it's also just an internal question of internal uplift, the upliftment of black in very general ways, and that's of course somewhat connected to the black power ethic, right? And so all of this kind of gets laced, and of course we know Philly has a vibrant, radical community all its own, and so you get some of that or a lot of that, and really coming out and coming through the music. And I think more appropriately now than ever, we can talk about Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes and McFadden and Whitehead, who give us some of these songs that speak to this issue. And there's you know, there are a number of classic songs of the era, and McFadden and Whitehead, who wrote and produced for a number of other artists, created one song that is as everlasting as any song could be, particularly coming out of this moment, and that's Ain't No Stopping Us Now. So let's go to Ain't No Stopping Us Now right now from McFadden and Whitehead.
There's been so many things that's held us down, but now it looks like things are finally coming around. I know we've got a long, long way to go, and where we'll end up, I don't know. But we won't let nothing hold us back. We're putting our show together, we're polishing up our act. And if you've ever been held down before, I know you refuse to be held down anymore. Well, don't you let nothing stand in your way. I want y'all to listen to every word I say, every word I say. Ain't no stopping us now. We're on the Ain't no stopping us now. We got to do. Ain't no stopping us now. We're on the I know. Ain't no stopping us now. We've got to do. We got it. I know you know someone that has a negative vibe, and if you're trying to make it, they only push you aside. They really don't have nowhere to go. Ask them where they're going, they don't know. But we won't let nothing hold us back. We're gonna put our show together, gonna polish up our act. Well, and if you've ever been held down before, I know you refuse to be held down anymore. Well, don't you let nothing, nothing stand in your way. I want y'all to listen, listen to every word I say, every word I say. No, no, no. We're moving, we're grooving. We're moving, yeah, yeah. We're grooving. Moving, 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 go. Ain't no stopping us now. We're on the move. I know we got the groove. Ain't no stopping us now. We're on the move. We're got the groove. Ain't no stopping us now. Oh, no, no. I'm on the move. I really, really got that groove. I know, we've got the groove. Makes you wanna really move. No need in trying, no, 'cause I ain't buying. No, no, don't try to stop us. No, no, no.
Ain't no stopping us. You know, we'll let that play in the background just a little bit. There are a couple of groups we just won't have time to get to in this hour-long segment. One group that is certainly deserving of some time and attention are the Spinners. The Spinners were as significant of a male group of the 70s. They provided some hits like Sadie. They provided all kinds of hits, in fact. The Delphonics, obviously, slightly earlier. Another women's group that we didn't talk much, that I didn't talk about, the 3 Degrees. When Will I See You Again? Of course, Lou Rawls, You'll Never Find. Right? And I'm thinking of the major hits here. And then, of course, the anthem, in a lot of ways, of Infidelity, Me and Mrs. Jones by Billy Paul. You know, the Philly crew put together some really, really important works. But we're going to go right to another track here, and I'm trying to get us into the Teddy Pendergrass era of the decade. If you can imagine, if there's one artist that really stands above the others, and it's hard to imagine that, but if this particular gentleman, Teddy Pendergrass, goes on to an amazing run in a very short period of time. You know, there was I've been trying to stay away from the Motown Philly soul comparison, but one of my aunts once said, you know, Marvin had some lean years, and in those lean years for Marvin Gaye, there was a gentleman named Teddy Pendergrass. But he gets his start with Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes as a backup singer, and I'm doing the fake quotations, folks. And so let's get a little bit of some early Teddy Pendergrass with Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, and then, ladies, we'll come back to some Teddy Pendergrass for you on solo.
Wake up, everybody, no more sleeping in bed. No more backward thinking, time for thinking ahead. The world has changed so very much from what it used to be. There's so much hatred, war and poverty. Wake up all the teachers, time to teach a new way. Maybe then they'll listen to what you have to say. They're the ones who's coming up, and the world is in their hands. When you teach the children, teach them the very best you can. The world won't get no better if we just let it be. Na 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 na. The world won't get no better. We gotta change it now, just you and me. Wake up all the doctors, make the old people well. They're the ones who suffer and who catch all the hair. But they don't have so very long before their judgment day. So won't you make them happy before they pass away? Wake up all the builders, time to build a new land. I know we could do it if we all lend a hand. The only thing we have to do is put it in our minds. Surely things will work out. They do it every time. The world won't get no better if we just let it be. Na, 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 na. The world won't get no better. We gotta change it now, just you and me. Yeah, yeah. Change it, yeah, change it, yeah, just you and me. Change it, yeah, change it. Can't do it alone, can't do it alone. Need some help, y'all, y'all. Can't do it alone, can't do it alone. Yeah, yeah. Wake up, everybody. Wake up, everybody. Need a little help, y'all. Yes, I do. Need a little help. Say it, boy. Need some help, y'all. Change the world, what it used to be. Can't do it alone. Can't do it alone. Need some help, yeah. Need some help, yeah. Wake up, everybody. Get up, get up, get up, get up. Wake up. Come on, come on. Wake up, everybody. Teach a new way.
Yeah.
Maybe then that's all.
Wake up, wake up. Appreciate it, JT. Thanks for having me, by the way.
Hey, thanks for coming on.
Glad to be here, man.
This is it. This is our radio history hour, man. Gotta have guests on. It's much more fun.
You know, a lot of folks often assume that disco dominated music during, particularly the mid '70s.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, for R&B in particular, you see some filtering of disco in and out, but not as a dominant theme or as a dominant sort of effort. In fact, and you mentioned this, and that was, I think you're really accurate. There's a lot of music that was probably labeled as disco that probably wasn't, or certainly it would have probably just been a club song opposed to a disco song. You know, once we get to the anti-disco or the disco bashing that goes on by the mid 80s and all that, you know, some folks kind of get lumped into some places where they probably didn't want to get stuck. Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, and that, I mean, it's the language. And we kind of take it for granted, but like the language to even describe R&B on some levels, hip hop,
right?
You know, all these things that we take for granted because the words have been around for 30 years. Well, in 1975, calling something hip hop didn't mean what it would mean calling something in 1985 even hip hop. Like you're talking about this different kind of language that wasn't quite exactly there yet to describe some of the stuff that was going on. Just this, my students today asking me what's next. I don't know if there is going to be something that can emerge like that again, but you know, I think that has a lot to do is we got to put them in the categories that are available to us. Got to put them in the categories that are available. If it's closest to disco.
Yeah, and you know, it's tough, and I'm sure, you know, this is where those artists that resist that kind of categorizing are so important because so much of that is industry created, you know, and don't know that we should ever try to quantify or qualify art quite that way. And of course, with the what we learned with black music in particular, you know, it's so overly commodified that it suffers from that in many ways.
Yeah, do you see the Philadelphia sound? I mean, Motown, you can sort of look at like a machine almost. Is that, do you think what's going on here? Is there more freedom there? I mean, they're calling it a producer's genre, you know, that really minimizes the artist input. You see that as a little bit different here?
You know, I think because of the talent on the roster here, there's probably less of an ability to overly structure a sound. You know, you can't harness Eddie Levert. You can't harness Patti LaBelle. You can't harness Teddy Pendergrass. The best thing these producers and writers can do is, of course, create some wonderful love songs, some inspiring songs. Let the band do what the band does, and then let the singers do what they do. And I, you know, I don't think it's in any way accidental that the Philadelphia International company, the company that really is sort of at the core of this, Philadelphia International Records, backed by CBS. This is a Clive Davis project. You know, he sort of says, "Hey, let's give these folks some support. Let's let Gamble and Huff and these folks do their thing," and they do their thing in impressive ways. And then, you know, Bad Luck is in the background here. This is another one of those songs that could be erroneously placed somewhere. You know, it could be dumped into something disco-esque or certainly a club song and all that kind of stuff, but it's really not a song that you can quantify and place in a category or categorize quite that way. But let me go to some Teddy Pendergrass. I know we're running out of time. Let's just do one little snippet here of Teddy Pendergrass so we can really hear him do his thing, and then we're gonna come forward and see how the Philly sound has continued on here in the last couple decades.
I want some company. And you look like you're just my type. You're the kind whose spirits are running free. Let's take a sip of some cold, cold wine and dance to the music nice and slow. Kind of pressure. You see, we'll just let the evening flow. Come on and go with me. I'd sure like that, babe. Come on over to my place. It would be so nice. It would be so good. Come on and go with me. Come on over to my place. Just bored to death, and you wanna get away. You wanna get away from this noisy crowd. Let's go where it's nice and quiet, where there's nobody else around. Let's sit by a cozy lit fire, and we can be each other's company. How does that sound to you? You see, 'cause it sounds so good. It sounds so good to me. Come on and go with me. Would you do that, baby? Come on over to my place. Would you do that, baby? Would you do that, baby? Come on and go with me. Come on over to my place.
Ladies, Teddy's really clear. He said his car's right outside. We can leave right now. That's if you're ready to go. I know you're just meeting me, and I'd understand it if you said no, but don't do that. You don't mean that. You know, that's Teddy Pendergrass. I mean, you can hear the power, you can hear the sultriness, you can hear the just the unbridled sex appeal, but more than anything else, you hear this amazing baritone, you know, and it's a baritone with range, and you know, this is a remarkable entertainer, and you know, I need to say one thing. We lost another legend today, Chuck Brown, go-go master, pioneer. Let me just. It might have been yesterday. I can't remember. Was it yesterday? Folks out there, let me know. It might have been yesterday. I could be wrong. I'm getting my days mixed up. But I do want to just take a moment and send a shout out and RIP to Chuck Brown. I mean, that's, you know, go-go again. You know, when we think about these sort of specific hot pockets of musical brilliance, certainly the sound of go-go out of D.C. is one of those. But JT, we only have a few minutes left, and I got to get the listeners out there to share with me the continuation of the Philly sound. You know, what's beautiful about now we're talking 70s, right? And then this continues into the 80s, certainly into the mid 80s with Teddy Pendergrass. The Ojays continue important work. Phyllis Hyman is doing important work. Patti LaBelle's doing stuff into the 80s. By the time we move into the early 90s, we're talking about this phenomenon called hip hop, right? And the reality is, the Philly sound becomes instrumental, and no pun intended, and influential in hip-hop. And there's no more, in my opinion, this is open to debate, although I don't think anybody could win this debate, there's no more influential hip-hop group than the Philadelphia-based group, The Roots. And their impact to hip-hop music, I think, will be everlasting and immeasurable. And there's one song, I think, that is emblematic of the ways in which the Philly sound gets folded into this new era. And we know this song, and we love this song. People know this song. I know for a fact we do. But if we listen to it, boy, it sounds like it comes from a place, and it sounds like it's of a tradition. And that's You Got Me by The Roots, written by Jill Scott. So we'll go to Jill next.
We used to live in the same building on the same floor and never met before until I'm overseas on tour and peep this Ethiopian queen from Philly taking classes abroad. She studying film and photo, flash, focus, record. Says she working on a flick and cut my click through the score. She says she loved my show in Paris at Elysée Montmartre, and that I stepped off the stage and took a piece of her heart. We knew from the start that things fall apart, intent to shatter. She like, that shit don't matter when I get home. Get at her through letter phone, whatever, let's link, let's get together. Shit, you think not? Think the thought went home and forgot. Time passed, we back in Philly, now she up in my spot, telling me the things I'm telling of is making her hot. Started building with her constantly round the clock. Now she in my world like hip hop and keep telling me, yeah.
If you were worried about where I've been or who I saw, what club I went to with my homies, baby, don't worry, you know that you got me. If you were worried about where I've been or who I saw, what club I went to with my homies, baby, don't worry, you know that you got me.
Yo, I'm the type that's always catching a flight, and sometimes I got to be out at the height of the night, and that's when she flip and get on some old.
Another lonely night, seem like I'm on the side, you only loving your mind. I know you got.
No, we're running out of time. I'm gonna let Black Thought and Eve of Destruction, also out of Philly. We know Eve, right? I'm gonna let them rock in the background. This is a love song.
And that's when I think that there's a couple different traditions you can think about with hip hop. So you can go through the techno funk, the Africa Bambaataa, that sort of record scratch and beatboxing. But here, it's just a different delivery over the same old song, I think, which is a nod to tradition, but then it's also pushing it forward and creating something new. And I think that...
Well, you know, on the Roots' second album, Do You Want More, they had, I thought, a song that was really indicative of what they were up to as a group, and it was called Dat Scat. And you have Black Thought obviously doing his scat rendition over a track that was produced with live instruments, but then of course when they travel they take dats and all that. You know, so they're very much understanding, I think, as a group, their significance and their role in black music and music more broadly as well. I know. Let me do one more before we do. You need to. Let me do one more. Mike, I see you out there, big fella. We lost Chuck yesterday, Donna Summers today, but there's a lady named Jill Scott who deserves some attention here. She is, of course, a part of this Philly sound. Wait, let me give you some Quest first. I'm sorry. Let me give you some Quest love, fans.
I've been a who I saw. What club I went to with my homies, baby, don't worry, you know that you got me. If you were worried about where I've been a who I saw.
Jazz back
What
in.
club I went to with my homies, baby, don't worry, you know that you got me.
Leonard Hubbard on bass. All right, and in honor of Chuck, we got some go-go coming for you, big fella. We sure appreciate it. We sure appreciate everything you gave us. Jill Scott, it's love.
They say I'm crazy, the way you got me open, baby. Ooh. They say I'm bugging, the way I'm time sweating your loving. Ooh. They all sit and wonder why this feeling I cannot hide. It ain't a question of pride. Ooh. It's love, it's love, it's love, it's love. Ooh. It's love, it's love, it's love, it's love. They say I'm tripping, the way you got my whole life flipping. Ooh. They say I'm losing it, just can't seem to keep my grip, baby. We all cry when we feel pain. When love is gone, we're not the same. It ain't a question of race. Ooh, it's love.
You ain't been to a party till you been to a go-go party. You ain't had a good time until you had a good time with some go-go music.
Well, Rob, thank you for coming on. Let's have a last word here. You brought us all the way. What year is that? 2011?
No, that's gonna be actually that's probably 2001.
Oh,
I'm guessing.
okay. Jeez, well,
You know, there's really no last word. I don't think that this music is gonna be here with us forever. If you want classic soul, if you want classic soul brimming with some funk, go to Philly.
All right,
Go to Philly.
All right. Well, again, thank you, Rob, for coming on. As always,
Sure
please-
appreciate you for having me, man.
All right. Please come on down to the video store here, located right in the middle of Center Street, River West Film and Video, a great place to rent your movies. I've got a special announcement. I'm taking a week off. I'll be taking a week off, and we're going to move the time to Saturday, but as always, these will be archived, so you can watch them whenever you damn well please. Thank you for tuning in. Come down to the video store. We're out.